welcome back to the NOYC Godcast, where we offer wacky wisdom weekly from God's Word. We're back in the garden today, sort of. So we're still going through the theme for camp this year, which is Get Me to the Garden. We've been unpacking that week after week here on the Godcast. And so today we're looking at Wednesday's theme, which is Paradise Lamented. So Monday we talked about paradise lived and how we were created for an environment known as Eden. Mm-hmm. That everything about our existence is tied to that place. Last week, which was Tuesday's lesson. Last week was not a Tuesday. Some weeks do feel like that. Don't you feel like this?
There was a Tuesday last week.
There was a Tuesday, but some weeks just feel like a Tuesday. I don't know. Jamie would agree with me.
Okay.
So the second lesson, we talked about paradise lost and how, because of sin, both Adam and Eve sin and our sin as well, that environment of Eden that we were created for has been lost. Everything that we were made for is gone. So with Wednesday, we get to Paradise Lamented. And Miguel and I were talking earlier over lunch, and I feel like we're going to talk about it here in a second, but I feel like this is where the theme takes a turn. And it's like things that we all know are true, but it just kind of feels like it should be wrong. Like we shouldn't do this, but like biblically we're told to do this. So let me unpack it a little bit here for you. So humanity lives between a paradise that was lost in Eden and a paradise that is promised through Christ. Because of the fall, life is deeply broken, and people often respond in one of two unhealthy ways. We either respond to this fallen environment, this broken world, by cynicism or by simulation. So cynicism is when you only see broken things, and so you just break it further, right? Like you just like, it's already broken, so what? Go ahead, just break it. Yeah, just go for it. Simulation, on the other hand, is when it is broken, but you pretend it's fine. You pretend that it's not broken, even though it clearly is. Ironically, I would say most, if not all, Christians fit into one of two of those categories, and maybe it depends on your Tuesday, but we fit into one of those categories. When ironically, according to the Bible, there is a third category that we're called to live that I don't know that anyone actually lives. So God has called us to a middle ground between cynicism and simulation, and that common middle ground is honest lament over what we're in. It's having a confident hope, though we're in an honest lament. Brother Miguel just preached this for us here at our church several weeks ago. But we're going to deep dive Wednesday into Romans 8 on Wednesday of camp. And Romans 8 it's one of the most famous chapters in all the Bible for Christianity. It's one of the most powerful chapters in all the Bible for Christianity. But what's fascinating about Romans 8 is that the Bible tells us that creation groans, all the creatures groan, Christians groan, our Creator God groans, and even Christ groans. In other words, everything groans. There's nothing groanless. And if that's not a word, it should be now, or will forever be now. There's nothing that actually doesn't groan. So the question then becomes, are we honest about our groaning, or are we pretending otherwise with our groaning? And the reason everything groans is because everything and everyone has been impacted by the fall. God included, Jesus certainly, like his whole, certainly. And at camp, we're going to talk about things that maybe you've never even thought about, like the fact that the way you relate to God, the way that you pray, or the way you fall asleep when you try to pray, the way you sit through a service, the way you try to worship or sing, all of those things that are spiritual, even those things are impacted by the fall, and we can't do them to the extent or degree we were intended to, right? And so the areas that we struggle, we're like, I just can't, and that's Paul's point in Romans 7. But we try to do what we're supposed to, and we just can't. Well, it's because we're in a state of lament. We're in a state of groaning over what was supposed to be good, but it's not good right now. And so what we're going to talk about in Paradise Lamented is the fact that the Bible gives us permission to grieve and to groan over what's not good. And the name that the Bible gives for that groaning is a lament. So we're going to talk about this more at camp, but ironically, lamenting, there's a book called Lamentations, right? There's literally a book in the Bible. I think that's one of those like Leviticus books where we're just like, skip past that one. It's so depressing. But there's a book called Lamentations. But interesting, 40% of the Bible, or 40% of the Old Testament is actually considered a lament. That's almost half. 40%. That includes all the minor prophets. That includes the book of Lamentations. 40% of the Bible. So here's God. He gives us this book, and 40% of it is laments. And yet we come to our current environment, our current life, and we're like, oh, I gotta. If I'm sad about what I'm facing, I'm sinning. I'm doing the wrong thing. If I act like I'm depressed about this, if I groan over this, I'm actually letting God down. And God's screaming from heaven, no, I want you to groan. I want you to lament. I'm groaning. You should be groaning, right? And so not only are we given permission to lament, we're actually almost commanded or expected to lament. And so lamenting is not a lack of faith. Lamenting is actually an expression of faith. Again, throughout the Bible, the Psalms, the prophets, God's people would lament, they would mourn. And the reason they did so is because God made this promise. We're not experiencing this promise, which means that the promise is to come. Lamenting is an expression of hope. Lamenting is an expression of what is good that will come someday, but is not yet today. And so Jesus, we learn that Jesus, he lamented. Jesus groaned over sickness. Jesus groaned over death. He groaned over hypocrisy. He groaned over human suffering. And so God, this is the part that seems to go against our flesh and against the grain of our culture and Christianity. God does not ask believers to fake happiness or to ignore pain. I think we think we're sinning. Like I've had teenagers in our church come up to me and share how when they have a sad day, they feel like they're letting God down. They feel like they're failing him. They feel like they need to apologize to God. All the while, God's up there with big tears in his eyes, metaphorically, of course. Right? God is groaning, God is lamenting, and he expects us to do the same. And so somebody's saying something. I know I'm just going for it.
I see you have questions. So
I do. Okay, just hold your seat.
Yeah.
So at the same time, God invites us to sorrow honestly before him so that he can bring hope and a future promise. And so groaning is not the end of the story. Groaning is the beginning of an opportunity. Romans 8 teaches us that groaning leads to goodness, and that's our theme for Wednesdays, that groaning leads to goodness. Romans 8 compares it to child labor, travail. And it says that all the world, all of creation, everything is travailing. And so that means that something's coming. Like this pain has a purpose. There's a point to the end of this that's going to come out of this. And so even in the pain, even in the confusing parts, the reason we lament is because we know this is doing something, this is working something, this is bringing about something. The believer lives with hope, trusting that God is transforming suffering into redemption and preparing a restored paradise through Christ. So I didn't mean to teach the whole Wednesday lesson, but apparently we're just going to do that. Thoughts before we get into the questions? Like, does this feel a little misshapen for our modern Christianity?
So, like you said, God doesn't want fake happiness, but also somewhere along the line, we're like, okay, like, so God is good all the time, and God made today, so it must be good. So therefore, I have to be happy and seek the goodness in what it is. So even though I live in this sin-cursed existence where I'm not built to live in, I still have to show that, like, almost like I'm unaffected by this sin. And by saying you're unaffected by sin, God doesn't like that, because God hates sin so much. And then when we act like, oh, it's just a sin, it doesn't faze me, and God is like, I hate it. That's how much it bothers me. That is truly a poor reflection of our heart to sit here and say, I live in a sin-cursed world and everything is hokey-dory. It's almost like I believe a frog. If I'm not
hokey-dory? Like there's hokey pokey hunky dory, but there's not hokey pokey donkey hory.
East Coast slang. Okay. So I believe
T-shirts for camp. Added it to the list.
Yeah.
Hokey dory.
So a frog, when you're boiling a frog, something about a frog doesn't know that it's being boiled until it dies from being boiled.
From hokey dory to boiling frogs. Wow.
So my point is that like the frog is in a state of dying, but it's not responding to the fact that they're in a state of dying. Okay, we're in a sin-cursed world where we're acting like it's perfectly fine, and God's like, no, it's not. And you know what I mean? So, and I think we've just been conditioned that way.
I think the point is, if the world, the life we're living, is really as good as we portray it to be most of the time, there was really no reason for God to send His Son.
Mm-hmm.
He was a waste, respectfully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to recognize the bad before you can recognize the good.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to be honest about the state we find our lives in and the things we face in order to seek. You said, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. That is Bible, and we are to rejoice.
Mm-hmm.
What we're going to talk about Wednesday at camp is the fact that we live in lament, admitting how bad things are. But we have a Redeemer radar that's always looking for what He's doing, always looking for the good that can come from this, not denying the bad, but always looking for the good. That just feels so backwards. Like, it feels so different from what the culture of Christianity we've grown up in, but it's so entrenched in the Bible.
I was just thinking of Habakkuk, because he writes about that, right? He's lamenting over the evil that is happening in the nation of Judea. And then God responds to what He's going to do about it. And he's even more shocked by that. But by the end of it, he says, even though I can't see it, the lament led to trust. And you said it, you said it like lamenting shows that the pain has a purpose.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times where we get confused, right? Again, not to try to throw the things to distract us, but when COVID happened, a lot of people were lamenting, really complaining, but they were complaining because they took a right rather than the lack of faith in the people. You know what I mean? Like, that was an opportunity for us to lament, like, man, there's a lot of Christians that don't have faith. But how many people thought that way? Because typically when we complain, it's not because we complain about the evil or the unrighteousness, or that the good is, or that the evil is being seen as good. It's because things aren't just going our way.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And so I think this is a great topic, because it kind of puts a new perspective of, we can bring our complaints before God. The thing is, what are we complaining about?
Right.
Or what are we lamenting about? I like that word better.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a cliche, but I think the old saying, you can be bitter or you can be better, applies here. I think, whether it's COVID or whatever you're facing, you do have a choice. Like, you can complain about what's not worth complaining over, or you can overcome that by seeking His goodness in it and having faith, knowing He'll bring it about from good. And you can actually be better because of whatever you're facing. And so I've shared with a few people, this year's theme is so unique in so many ways, like nothing we've had before. But really, Wednesday and Thursday's lessons are just such in my opinion, they're powerful. They've had a great impact on my life. They're powerful, but then also they just feel counter-Christian cultural. Like, they just seem so backwards from what we're used to. But I really believe they're biblical. I really believe they're absolutely what God's asked us to do. So a few questions here just to go through these. When life disappoints you, do you tend to smash what's broken, which is cynicism, or do you pretend everything is fine? Which do you lean more towards?
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like, growing up, and even I'm still like that now. Like, it's a
You're
normal thing. I'm still growing up.
We all are.
But like, I feel like a big thing in the church nowadays, like, yes, there's the side of just pushing off and acting like that what I'm living in is completely okay and everything's 100%. But there's also the side where we're making people feel like they can't talk about how they're feeling. Yeah. And that's how, like, not that anybody ever intentionally made me feel that way. Really, it's just how I am. But I would, anytime anybody would ask me how I was, it was, everything's fine. Yep. It's okay. Like, I'm great. I'm okay. Yep. I'm wonderful. Yep. Butterflies and rainbows, when everything wasn't perfectly okay. Yep. And I think that that's something that, like, God's done a work on me, but I'm still, Lucas will be like, how are you? Or like, are you okay? And it's still, everything is fine. But letting go and learning that it's okay to talk about things, and it's okay to talk to God like He is your Father, and not just another perfect being that you're talking to. And that's something that I've really been working on myself. I've actually even started journaling just like I was talking to God, saying, I don't understand what's going on right now. Like literally writing it out like a conversation. I don't understand, but help me, prepare me for what's to come and prepare me for what's here and now.
Yeah.
And realizing that God can use you even in the midst of all of that, but he can't use you until you really let go of it. And you're not letting go of it if you're not talking about it.
The Bible uses this word, and I don't think we really fully understand the meaning of this word, but the Bible uses the word hypocrite. And like we think of hypocrite as like, all right, don't do the sin, but I'm going to do it when you don't look. But actually a hypocrite is literally, the definition is a pretender. And so even when we come to God, things are not okay, but we're like, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. When we do that to others and do that to God, we're actually being a hypocrite. Like we're putting on the face, it's a face of an actor is what it's, defined as. And so one of the things we're going to talk about at camp, and you brought it up, Jesus said, only those who are willing to admit they're sick, only they need a doctor. And only those who are willing to admit their need can find salvation. This applies to all of us. Like, yes, that's salvation, admitting we're a sinner, but also after salvation, until we admit to him that we're not fine, he can't be our redeemer. He can't enter into our situation and bring good out of it. And so how many of us are trapped in that fake smile on Sundays, trying to pretend we're fine, and we're actually tying God's hands from being able to help us because we're not admitting the problem.
I think that we don't want to show, like, I'm definitely the pretend everything is fine. Like, I don't
boil the frogs, you don't smash them, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of that comes from
just so calm. Like that was
like
I didn't even think.
So pretending everything is fine is the outward appearance that a lot of Christians think they have to project, because when you say, I'm a follower of Christ, okay, so you're taking on his name, okay, and then when a lost person is looking at you and you're like, I'm a follower of Christ, and they're like, yeah, but your life is literally falling apart.
Yeah.
Like you can't say, like, it doesn't seem right, as you say, to say to someone, I'm a follower of Christ and I'm miserable. You know what I mean? Because in our mind, we're thinking, like, well, that's not going to attract anybody.
Who wants that?
Yeah, like, like, who wants that? Okay. So I think the line is, are you pretending everything is fine? Or is your faith telling you everything is fine despite of what you're going through? You know what I mean? So when going through a trouble, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times, like I really hate when people like have pity for my situation. Like that just like, I don't like that at all. Okay. So I'm more of the type.
Oh, Kevin, I'm sorry.
So I'm more of the type of like, either pray for me or get out of the way. Like they're like, you know what I mean? Like that's just like my mindset. You know what I mean? So like when I'm going through something, okay, I tend to just like focus on God, trust God. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that like life is like hokey dory for me. I'm gonna keep saying it because I've always said that.
Still not
okay, but like having faith and confidence that eventually God is going to work it out for me. I'm looking at that saying everything's fine because I know the outcome. You know what I mean? I'm not looking at what I'm currently going through. I'm looking at the outcome of what I'm going through.
So you guys have heard of escape rooms. Obviously, we've had them at camp, but there's this thing called, I think they may be called like, they're not panic rooms, but basically you can go in there and you can just destroy everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
It's a rec room. That's actually, I wasn't going to talk about it. That's the whole first chapter of the lesson at camp. And it has theme music and everything. Doesn't sound very ragey, though. Yeah, it's a rage room, rec room. Yeah.
Well, it's up now, so let's talk about it. But really, that's how we live our life, right? Like that's, I like the contrast that you made there, right? We either live our life where we just, my life is burning, so I'm just going to help put fuel and just help it, or I'm gonna fake it till I make it. You know what I mean? In both of those ways, like you said, you mentioned, like God will not work with that. And I think one of the things is like arguing over words, right? But we ask people, how are you doing? And the reality is that we are doing well, right? Like, everything, but we know as believers, I mean, like we know that God has us, but we're not feeling well. Like, and it's okay to go through moments like that, David would say, "How long, God, will you ignore me?
Yeah.
Forever?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we think that we have to force the smile, otherwise we don't have faith.
Yeah.
Right? And there is times where we just don't have faith.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go through that process of mention, because that's what brings us to,
Right.
yeah, the God will do that. A good practice, I don't know if we're talking about application, but I've heard someone just said, go through those Psalms and see where the pivot point is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where he would bring out his lament. But in every one of those Psalms, there's a pivot point that would bring back to the faithfulness of God to bring them out of whatever. Yeah. And none of us are being persecuted like David. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize our pain,
for sure.
By no means. Yeah. There's people who are going through real, pain, but we have an example of somebody who also went through it. You know what I mean? So,
well, I think one of the things that really affected me was anytime that I would say I'm okay, God's like, you're lying. That's not true. You're not okay. And I think one thing as Christians that we've said, we aren't very good at, we don't want the non-believers or the people that aren't saved to see how we are. But not that I wasn't saved when these people said these things to me, but it made it such an impact on me when people would be going through things and I would ask them how they were and they would be honest. They would be like, I'm not doing okay. Yeah. But God's good through it. To hear somebody say that and know that, they're not just faking it and saying, oh, yeah, I'm doing great. You're going through stuff too, but look at how you're, they're literally just, these people are like, I'm not doing okay. Yeah. But, God's getting me through it. Yep. He's pushing me, and I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. One of my favorite passages in the Bible is in, I think it's Mark 6. There's different stories of the same passage, but when Jesus comes out from the mountain of transfiguration and this man is, broken because his son is possessed, and his words is, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. Excuse me.
Can you cough that way next time?
No, share the well.
It's hokey dory.
But that's it's okay to tell the Lord, and He's not gonna look at us less. He knows the condition that we're in. We're at this point, we're just hiding it from Him. We're attempting to.
We're
not really hiding
it. We're attempting to hide it, right? Yeah. Similar to Adam and Eve.
More fig leaves.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we keep talking about when someone says how you're doing. Okay, that is such a false question to most people because when you ask someone how are they doing, your expectation is they're gonna say fine, and you can keep going on about your day. Right.
Just emptied your dump truck right there.
No one wants the person to be like, now that you asked, let me take. You know what I mean? I got time. You know what I mean? So. Our society has conditioned us to no matter what you're going through, you know what I mean? The answer always has to be fine because the person asking you doesn't really it's almost like a courtesy. It's almost like saying part of hello.
Right.
Yeah. Hello, how are you?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we're like,
it's like clockwork.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't mean it.
And then we're always gonna just be like, good.
Yeah.
All right.
You know what I mean? And then forbid they say, well, I heard you were, and you're like, ooh, they really know. Yeah. You know what I mean? And still at that point, they don't want to know. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh, I heard you lost your job. Well, good luck with that. You know what I mean? And we're just like, I wanted to tell you, but you kind of said good luck with that, which means you don't really want to hear it.
So. You guys are beating around the bush here. So let me put this out on the table. We don't want to lie. If we really believe what we're saying, then every time we say, I'm fine, it's fine, we're fine, we're putting another mask on. Mm-hmm. Some of our faces are way too thick because we just add a mask every time. So that's not the answer.
It hurts your ears too,
it's also we don't want to be that person that empties the dump truck right in their lap when someone, they're just on their way to lunch saying hello and here you go, just the whole thing. So we don't want to do that either, because that's not always edifying to the right ears. That's not always able to be received. So what do we do? What is the answer? I'm going to guess before this day's over, someone's going to say, hey, how are you? Yeah, what is the answer? What should we do? And is this something that as Christians, if we would follow the Bible's method, we would actually go against the grain of culture and stand out and show faith in a way that we're supposed to, but aren't.
I think it would be a perfect testimony. Now that you said that, if someone said, hey, how you doing? I'm struggling. but God's gonna get me through it. That should be the answer.
And that was kind of my thought with the Psalms, because that was spot on.
Put it on Facebook, but
run to Megatron. But the Psalms really is such a great example, and I love that. Like, I just love the Psalms, but so many of them turn on a dime. Like, literally, the space between one verse and the next is where it all flips, and it's beautiful. And the Psalms are just so often doing that. But what would it look like to respond that way? Like, be honest, lament. I'm not doing well, but I'm looking for God to use this for good. You know what I mean?
But like I said, that's a better testimony because you're telling that person, you know what I mean? Like, you're in the same boat they're in, you know what I mean? But yet you don't view it the same way they do because you have hope in something better, where the lost person has no hope. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm struggling, but God's going to get me through it. That could just open up a whole great, you know what I mean? Well, tell me about how this is going to work out. You know what I mean?
I was just gonna say, like, you mentioned there's wisdom in how you share your struggles too, right? You don't want to just stand up and disrupt the whole church service,
right?
But at the same time, God doesn't place us in this lone Christianity. He places us in a community. There's I heard someone tell me this, that every Christian should have a Paul in their life. Every Christian should have a Timothy in their life, someone there to help. Every Christian should have a Barnabas in their life, somebody they walk alongside with. That may not, let's just say, for instance, you come and you share with me some of your struggles. Josh, I don't have the answers for you, but I commit to praying with you. You know what I mean? And we don't have that because we either want to have like, as someone who's receiving the you're pouring out to me, I want to have the answers for you, and that's not,
well, and even ironically, even God doesn't always promise us answers. So, like, why do we feel like we have to have the answers? Like, even God's like, nope, not going to answer that. Like, bring it to me. By all means, give it all to me, but I'm not going to answer that. And that's what he does to Job. Like, Job's like, here's all the questions. And God's like, I'm not answering any of those, but I'm here for you. And I am God, and because I am in control.
I think that, again, in our society, like, to claim you're a Christian to a lost person, they feel like, oh, you're a Christian. I've been meaning to ask a Christian. And they put on this long list, and you're like, I don't know. And they're like, well, if you don't know, who should I ask? And it's not like who should you ask? It's, you should start this journey yourself. And
well, so what we've created by always faking that everything's good, we have opened the door perfectly for the enemy to come in and sow the false seeds of best life now. God is here to make you happy. God is here to serve you. And like, we look at those TV preachers with shiny teeth, not to name names, but we look at some of those preachers and we were like, false prosperity gospel. Listen, it's in Free Will Baptist churches. We think God is here to bless us, to make us happy, to prosper us. And does his heart want to do those things? Yes. The way he does those things is through pain and difficulty, right? And so he's not here to fix everything immediately. He's not here to bless everything that you do. He's not here to give you everything you want. He's not your genie in a bottle. He's not. So when we put on the fakeness, we're advertising a version of Christianity that doesn't actually exist. And so people come up to us from the world who don't know the Lord, and they're expecting that, and we're feeding into it by not being honest and transparent or projecting hope amidst the lament. And so I say this often here, but there's a reason we are where we are in Christianity today. Like, we got here very intentionally. It's not by a mistake or accident. So Romans 8 tells us that God himself groans over the condition of our lives, of this world, of everything around. He groans. Juliet she's my little artist. And she is very proud of all of her artwork, no matter where she doodles or paints. Everything she does is a masterpiece, and it is. But she's very, very distraught when, like, a tiny, like, one misstroke or someone spills a little, something. So it's the end of the world. Can you imagine how God feels to have created everything perfectly, pristinely, and man wrecked it all? Like, again, God knows all things. He knew that was coming. But so God groans over the state of his creation. But I think even more so what he groans over is the state of our soul. He created us to be his image bearers, to have a relationship with him, and we ruined that. And so my question for you all is this. What does it mean to you, or how does it impact you to know that God groans alongside you? Like, does that change anything?
It's very comforting.
It is.
It's comforting because, like, to know that God, groans with me, as opposed to, like, the worldly view of like God never groans. So if you're groaning, he's not groaning. You should be like
or
him.
he groans at me.
Yeah, or he groans at me. You know what I mean? But to know that he is just like groaning, you know what I mean, with me over the same things, you know what I mean? That's very comforting to know. And it should put us in a state of mind as it's almost like, you know, you're working at a job in a factory, you know what I mean? And everyone is like sweating and it's really hot, but no one says anything and they're just going through it. And the boss like, how's everything? Everything's fine, boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He walks away. And I'm like, Miguel, if I feel like it's 200 degrees in here, Miguel's like, I know, bro. And Josh is like, and you guys are hot too. Now we all feel better.
I'm starting to think we're frogs.
You see where I'm going with this whole theory, right? So because he's moaning with us, we should feel like I'm, you know, moaning over a legitimate thing. You know what I mean?
Well, not only does he grow with us metaphorically, but like the literal crux of the gospel is he entered into our groaning alongside us.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not from, you know, from heaven distantly groaning.
Right.
Oh, so sad, Emma, that you're going through this. And I'm, woe is me as well.
Like that person who hears you like,
Yeah.
good luck with
that. God entered into our groaning. He came down and groaned with us alongside us. Like he became the groan in order to save us from the groan, if you will.
Right.
And so it's just, that is the gospel.
Well, I was just going to say, like, how does that make you feel? Like he cares.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel more and more like, even though we say the right things, we, you know how to quote scripture. I think a lot of the times we feel like God is so, to your point, so distant from it. I think about like those Greek gods that, you know, to us it sounds so like cartoonish.
Yeah.
And make
there's a cartoon about that.
Yeah.
It literally is.
Release. But that's the same way that we act, you know. I know that this is what he said, but I just don't think he cares.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Javi. He was upset about a video game. And in his complaint, his lament, he was, you know, just upset that he couldn't beat it. And so I asked him, I was like, have you prayed about it? And his comment to me was like, no, he doesn't care about my video games. Mm-hmm. And my question is like, what makes you think that he doesn't care about your video games? And he's like, because he's busy. You know what I mean? And he is busy. He has a lot of things that he's doing. I was like, but he cares about you, so therefore he cares about that. Yep. Now, at the same time, when you cry your lament to the Lord, you have to be ready for him to answer and say, I don't want you playing that video game.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. And so I took it a little bit step further. I said, picture this, right? Let's say you were a thief and you were preparing for a heist and you were prepared, and nothing was going your way. And so you cried to God, I'm just trying to steal this diamond and I just can't do it. I was like, do you think you should pray? And I was like, no, because God doesn't want you to steal it. I was like, you should bring everything before God. But at the same time, you have to be ready for him to answer and say, no, stealing is wrong. Yeah. And therefore, the reason why it's not working because it's not what I have for you. Right. But we don't want that, right? Because if I'm complaining about my job and God wants me to leave my job, I'm not ready for that. Right? Yeah. And so we have to be ready to receive whatever answer he has for us.
We're going to talk about this next week because this is Thursday's lesson, but that's kind of where we segue into with this theme, the series, is the fact that the way to truly find hope in every situation is actually seek his will, not our will. Mm-hmm. When we're trying to pray for our will, God bless my will, we're always going to be disappointed. Like there's just no good ending to that story. It doesn't work. But when we submit our lives to his will, we can always guarantee that he comes alongside us, he will do what's right, and we can have hope knowing he'll do what's good.
And how often do we pray for things that are outside of God's will for us? And it doesn't have to be bad, like planning a bank heist or anything, you know what I mean? But like we want a new job, you know what I mean? It's like, Lord, I really, really want this job. Like it's going to pay me more money. I'll be able to take care of this, that, you know what I mean? And God's like, nope, I got you where you at for a reason. Mm-hmm. So while what we're praying for is not necessarily bad, it's just not his plan for us. And like, I actually had this thought earlier this week of how often do we pray for things outside of God's will for us? You know what I mean? He's not going to be like, you know, I had a plan for you, but I'm going to give you what you... No, he's going to stick to... He has to stick to his plan, you know what I mean? And then we get kind of, you know, in our feelings about it, like, well, this is what I want, and again, like you said, he's not a genie in a bottle. Right. So when he's not giving us what we think is best for us, You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We get kind of upset about
Yeah.
that.
And so that really is kind of the crux of the whole thing is Christianity is not about us.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's really
It's
the
not
problem.
called that.
Is that like we've been sold the wrong bill. Like we really, really think this is all about us. And from the very beginning in Eden, God was very open and transparent that no, it's not. There's only one God and we're not him. Well, I hope you're looking forward to Wednesday's theme. I am. I'm very excited for that lesson and hope that it will be helpful for all of us. Today's considerable quote comes from our Wednesday lesson, and it says this: as Christians, we live by faith, an unwavering conviction of belief that settles for nothing less than what is true, even when what is true cannot be seen. Today's feature content is God Did a Good Thing by Jordan St Cyr. Today's poll of the week. We should do one of those. I did not pick one of those. I don't know what else we want to ask these folks. They've been eating up the polls. They really like the polls. So I don't know if you have a poll. We did quick points in the snack shack. Oopsies! I didn't finish my homework.
Are we having the barista?
The coffee shop?
Yes, that's it.
Yes, we are.
Your favorite drink from the barista?
Toppings for the ice cream.
Topping for the ice
He doesn't like any of your guys' options.
Yeah. We will get back to you on that one.
You'll sip a full.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe. Item of the week. So we have a bad poem, a scriptured spoon, and Emma, what are they bringing to camp for points?
Flour of any kind. Can be fake, can be real. I knew
Can't be fake or real.
Can't be fake or real.
Here's my metaphorical flower.
My imaginary rose.
That's funny.
Can be fake.
Can be.
real.
That makes
I
more
was
sense.
prepared. I knew you were gonna
You
pick
really
up
were.
that.
I'm disappointed
Wow, that was
that I asked
good,
you
Emma.
now. My favorite thing is asking people not prepared, but y'all been doing this too long, so y'all prepared.
I wasn't totally prepared, but that's the fastest I've ever heard anyone
It
answer
was.
that
She was
question.
like,
you were like,
I just knew it. You would have said anyone's name.
I know.
Like, flower.
So bring a flower to camp and get your name entered in for prize drawings, points for your team. So make sure to do that. So registration is still open. We've actually got a lot this week of registrations. We only have like 25 spaces left. That's it, if that. That was as of this afternoon. So they are filling up. We may max out this year. So make sure if you have not yet, register soon. We do have t-shirts available. So if you've not yet ordered a t-shirt, we are going to have those available. And you can place that order on our, I think it's on our Facebook page. I don't think it's on our website. But yeah, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, share, and come back next week for our final edition of Get Me to the Garden Before Camp. And yeah, that's all we got. Thanks for coming, guys.
all right, thanks, guys. Have a good week.